Again, hi, nice to see you all. Been another week at our afternoon meeting here again. So good job for you, for everyone for remembering that. As far as agenda items, I don't have too much again today. Just bringing up again last week how we were talking about them, seeing if anybody had any other thoughts over the weekend about those naming conventions for the joint inversion packages, or if any, also kind of curious if anyone ever has gotten a chance to play around with the cross gradient branch I had suggested on Michelle Long's. I still have not heard back from them about any of the stuff they've played with yet. So still there. Any other gen items people can think about to chat for today? Not, I can move on to some quick reports. As always, just add yourself to the list, or a little bit sparse today, so maybe we can just do a round for everyone just to get a quick update. Not too much. Me, SimPEG related, I pushed a quick update to the discretized package saying that you can refer to levels in the refine functions as negatives, and they will index from the back. So if you want to refine at the maximum level, you can just do it as -1 instead of having to figure out what the max level was, or pass it just a little bit cleaner implementation. And as we're doing that, I would still like to separate up that helper function into the 3 different parts of it. So there's a refine tree XYZ function that has been being used. It's like there's 3 different ways, 3 different options of using it. And they should all be separated. So it makes it a little bit cleaner as far as what the parameters do, because they do slightly different things depending on what option is being passed to it. Just a little bit unclear. And then there's also the issue that I feel like I should have caught it much sooner, but it's the way that the levels are defined in that refine tree XYZ function is backwards the way that they are defined on the mesh itself. And that can lead to some confusion. So if you're just used to using one as opposed to the other, they should be unified together under the way that it works now, under the way that the levels are described on the meshes, just to be clear. And I think one of the thought of having that simple negative trick there makes it a little bit easier to still define those if you don't know what it's going to be ahead of time. It's like, oh, I want it at the max level, it'll be -1. Kind of like referring to the end of an array on Python, right? It's pretty logical. The other switch to unify those descriptors of the level numbers will be a little bit of work. Or more so just trying to get people to use them correctly, because there's so many examples now that use them already. And that, I think there's been a few issues with Azure pipelines not launching tests of some of the PRs I'm still working on. It seems really odd. It doesn't, I mean, obviously we've changed nothing in our scripts, and now it's just all of a sudden they're just automatically canceled. I don't know why. I'm gonna have to look into that a little bit more. I think Dom's PR fixing up the regularization should be ready to pull in. And that'll be good. Once that happens, I'll tag a new SimPEG release and push it up. And then we can work off there. That's my quick reports. Tivo, what have you got over the past week?
Not much in terms of SimPEG development. Well, if you got Dom's PR in going, might be worth looking at the one, I know it didn't touch PGI, and I will have to go back. It's been a few weeks now, but I'm just wondering if you're gonna break it, like if it's changed as it's changed, if it has changed sensitivity weighting and the normal regularization, but not PGI, it might break the PGI example. If that's just maybe something to look at. Just
Sure.
And
I'll check it. Keep an eye on it.
so maybe like that's gonna be PR. Yeah, that was a PR 1053. That was something to do with that, but I don't know if I don't remember if you needed to do something else after. Yeah, just the thoughts.
Okay. I think I like not having to worry about whether you're using the regularization is going to be helpful. Like whether you're using simple with the tree mesh versus when you've got the updating the sensitivity weightings. It'll lead to less confusion about what you're supposed to do with that little change there.
Yeah. So the PR I put that thing after after DOM was basically just merge like the simple PGI and PGI, so that now it's just one and that it has automatically the cell weights in it. But before, but all the example use the simple PGI without the cell weighting, so like you're losing that cell. Like so,
you're losing the volume term on there.
Yeah. So that's why I'm saying like it's possible that DOM's PR alone might break PGI because it didn't touch that portion.
Okay, so I'll check on it, and if it does, then we'll do a quick patch for that and then go.
Well, the patch is done. That's like, I think that's a PR 1053, but there is a lot more on that one.
Yeah.
I'm just talking in terms of like I'm just talking in terms of release, if it's worth having that one as well or not, like just checking that things are running as before.
One question with this too, are we going to get rid of the distinction between simple and Tikhonov and just call it all Tikhonov? Is that part of this pull request, or is that different?
Not this one. This is just dealing with the sensitivity normalization.
Okay.
Moving towards that.
Okay, so if that, I thought he was getting, I thought as in there, I thought he was getting rid of simple and Tikhonov.
No, it's just related to the sensitivity normalization. Again, denormalizing it by volume.
Okay. So then we can make an easy fix on SPR to just calling PGI instead of simple PGI in the example, and that will be a simpler fix.
Okay.
If you don't want to bring the more massive PR, that's where like I've actually collapsed the simple PGI and PGI, but that should probably happen as the same as we collapse simple and Tikhonov. But anyway, like let me know, and that we can make an easy fix on that for the, if you just want to have a release just for that.
Okay. Oh, one other thing that I've started doing locally is I'm working on branches that will remove the deprecations for SimPEG and discretize, because that should be coming soon, within a few releases. Just to be aware. All of the deprecations related to the very, 13, 013 and before, they're gonna get pulled out soon.
And with that, will there still be like an error message that says this is what you should be using now, or are you just gonna rip it out?
I think so. I think the process, the next one, they'll be changed to future warnings, so they'll be louder.
Okay.
And then they get removed.
Okay.
That's the general process. So they're going to get louder, and then they're going to get removed.
Okay, sounds good.
Mike, how's SimPEG been treating you?
Yeah, not too bad. Just kind of working on this paper draft still, trying to remake some figures. I had a situation kind of where my main gravity anomaly that kind of sits over this little volcanic center and this other active area were kind of offset at like a 45-degree angle from, they were kind of pointing straight northeast if I wanted a cross section through there. So I came up with a way to make diagonal cross sections. I don't know if it's the best way to do it, but it works. Yeah. So that was kind of what I was playing around with a little bit this week. Getting a nice way to draw that diagonal cross section and put it onto an actual 2D mesh so that I can still use like the gradient based function that I use to kind of draw the outlines of my synthetic models and the topographic surface. So anybody ever has a need or a use for that, I'm happy to send a script to you that shows how I went about doing that. So
how much do we want to be able to do a diagonal cross section with built within the mesh class in Discretizer? Joe, any opinion on that?
Sorry, what was that, Peter?
Do we want to have like the possibility to do diagonal cross section with like the plot slice tool within Discretize, or is that just not something we want to have?
If someone wants to add it in, I would not say no. How about that?
Yeah. And
That's
it just
fair.
feels that it's not the first time we talk about it, or that someone asked for it or needed it. So just asking of like if Mike can contribute something, or if there was like a deeper reason that we should not have it because Mike, you probably wrote that in Python, while plot slice might have some roots on the C code.
yeah, yep, right. Yeah, I don't know. The way I did it was using PyVista. I wrote it out to like a VTK object, sliced it using PyVista, and then got the points off of the slice. Found the cells in my model that were kind of closest, or kind of that those points fell within, and then just kind of did a nearest neighbor interpolation to get it onto a 2D mesh that I then kind of translated from XYZ points to Z points and profile distance. So kind of a hodgepodge of things, but it works.
Something like that might be a really useful example for the documentation, is that even if it's not something that we necessarily want to include, having something that we can point people to and say like, here's one way to do it. And even if you want to put at the top that like, hey, this is my approach, if you've got improvements, be great to find out. It could be kind of a cool way to crowdsource some of this problem.
Yeah, I would want to make a smaller toy problem, because right now my mesh takes a while to load. That is definitely the time sink in this whole process right now, just loading the mesh. Oh.
Are you storing it? Like, what are you storing it as?
I think a UBC mesh, and then just using the, let me check that really quick. I have one open here. Yeah, I'm just saving it as a UBC mesh and then using treemesh.read UBC.
Okay. I want to like it. You should check to see if it's quicker to pickle it and then just load that in instead of like the whole operation of reading in the text file, reorganizing everything, like regenerating it. Like the text file read in is kind of hard sometimes. That's
a good point. I actually meant to ask you. I thought about that a week or so ago and meant to ask you about it, but obviously didn't get around to that. Yeah. So I'll accept it should be an easy check to do. Yeah.
Stores it more as like a binary file. So unless you like actually need to look at it.
It'll be easy to test. I'll do that this afternoon. Thank you, Joe.
Lindsay, see you next on my screen.
Mostly writing grants is what I've been doing. So lots of writing, but got one submitted today. So that's good.
Good, good. When is the next seminar?
So this will be with Craig Miller. And actually, thanks for bringing this up, Joe. So Craig will be giving it, let me see. What did we decide on? November 18th at 3 p.m. Pacific is what we tentatively have put.
November 18th, 3 p.m. Pacific.
Yeah, so we can maybe check with Dom next time he's on to try and make sure it's not a BCGS meeting too, seminar marathon. What are folks' thoughts on having one in December? Like, we could try to. I also appreciate it's AGU, end of term, Christmas. It's a month that disappears quickly. So we could also just postpone and do something in January. I don't know. Anybody have opinions?
Sure.
Both way are possible. I mean, there are EMINAs during December as well. So like that's still happening too. So yeah, I don't know. If someone wants to give one in December, why not?
Okay, well, let's tentatively plan to punt it because we don't have anybody lined up. But that is then maybe a call for folks here to tap people that you want to hear from, and just say, we're looking for seminar speakers in the new year. So that gives people plenty of time. But if you know people who would like to come and connect with the group, and even if they're not specifically working with SimPEG, if they're doing inversions, that's great, and having them come give a talk would be awesome. And so it's great if there's like an open source component, but also if there's just interest in connecting with the community, that's completely welcome. So please do tap some people, and yeah, we can get a list going.
I mean, I have a question on that. Is like I don't know if everyone but me knows those people, but who are those people working on that SimPEG Aurora project? I don't even know who they are, or like, I know it's for MT processing, but that's all I know about that. So if you know those people and they're like willing to present what they're doing within that SimPEG environment, that would be nice, because it's, for now, for me, it's just something that pop-ups every day in my mailbox, but that's about it.
Sure, that was the meeting Joe and I were just in. It's Carl Kapler and Jared Peacock are two people who are the driving forces, and Joe, myself, and Doug are kind of trying to help out in the background. Yeah, we can definitely float that. The project is sort of wrapping up, so I think this round of the project is wrapping up, and we're putting in hopefully a new proposal with Iris soon-ish, but something in the new year. Yeah, we can ask and see if they would be game.
So is there any link with SimPEG in that, or like what was the motivation to have that in the SimPEG environment too? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I mean, because it is, so it's geophysics related. It's definitely like quite nicely linked with the software that we, the simulation inversion software push that we have. They wanted to plug into a community that already exists and see if there's folks who might be interested in sort of crossing in over there and dabbling in with the processing software. So actually having a seminar that invites folks here. So like the first year of the project was basically kind of getting a base level in place. And so transferring Gary Egbert's EMTF code from he's got an original Fortran version, he's got a MATLAB implementation, and the goal was to basically get up to the same level of functionality as the MATLAB implementation. And so actually with Carl's work, he's done some really great work and gotten it, I'd say in some cases, surpassing the MATLAB code that Gary provided. But it's still kind of in the early stages of a project, right? Like we were a few years ago in SimPEG, where you still need to get, the bones in place before people can really start to rely on it. But I'd say a lot of the core functionality, the core classes and things like that, at least the broad strokes of it are in place.
Okay. Stefan, what have you been up to?
Just mostly more doc strings. I've gotten through the utilities, and for the most part, I think there's probably one or two that I missed. And then I started documenting all the mapping classes. There is a lot of undocumented math in there. So I'm almost through those, but it was quite tedious. But I am able to build the website with the latest style, the PyData theme, and getting all that stuff to kind of build with no errors. So that's really good. I think my approach right now is that I'm going to start with documenting the base classes for SimPEG. I'm going to stay away from regularization and directives for now, because I think there's a lot of active work being done on those. And I'm putting off putting any doc strings or any doing the API for simulation classes yet. I guess what I want to do is start with the things that I don't believe are actively being worked on or changed, and then move to the other stuff. Also did some work. I can't remember if I talked about it last week, but I did do some work on the EM1B stuff. I just can't remember if it was 1 week or 2 weeks ago. So I did find a couple of bugs, and I did update the tutorial examples to be consistent with how the coding is managed. So that stuff's kind of been done. So maybe Soggy, if you want to take another look at it, that would be great. One of the ones that I'm finding is a little strange is inverting a frequency domain sounding for the conductivity structure and the flight height. That does not seem to be working very well. It was working before, but that doesn't seem to be particularly stable for some reason, and I haven't dug into it yet.
I think it's not ready for inverting the height. I think we haven't clarified the definition of what is the height means when you got multiple sources and receivers. So yeah, I think it's not supposed to work. So it's yeah, I was just like kind of putting that as a leftover that we can tackle later. So as long as the conductivity inversion works, I think we're good to go.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah. I mean, I'm not super. Oh, go ahead.
I would expect the conductivity inversion to work, the susceptibility, or the magnetic permeability inversion to work, and the thickness inversion to work.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, it's a little bit, before it was kind of the way that we had set up the, I guess, sources and receivers, the height was kind of a single parameter for each location. And now that each transmitter, like each frequency will correspond to a different source object, you then have to do kind of a projection mapping from a constant to all the heights, even though it's the same transmitter or the same.
Yeah, so that operation is not in there yet.
No, well, it is. It's just not really working very well, right? There's a projection mapping that would.
Oh, it might be, but it's not. I don't know. I don't think it actually is. I don't remember having it in there.
Yeah, I don't think. At least I think that mechanics has not tested.
Yeah.
Not sure like whether code runs or not, but yeah, we haven't actually addressed that issue, so I think it may not work.
So I'm happy to abandon it for now. But I took a stab at it, and it's not happy. It's
So
a little
Deb,
bit more complicated to do it the way that we've set everything up now.
so Deb, like all the tutorials are working now then?
They should be. Yeah, and I found a couple bugs which got fixed. So that
Okay.
was good. I updated the branch so that everything seems to be up to date with the current simulation, or at least last week, unless things have been merged in since. So it's in a much better place to get brought in than it was.
Okay, that's good. I'll take a look and yeah, clean it up and make a pull request to the main.
Sounds good. Yeah, that's it for me.
Okay, and Soggy, you're the last one.
I have no update, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, actually, I got 0 updates.
Wrote a book chapter about DC.
Yeah, we're still actively using SimPEG, but yeah, I haven't made much progress on developing SimPEG. I'm quite actively working on I'm not sure you guys remember the inverting the INSAR data. So I'm getting relatively close. I kind of finished writing the inversion code for a single time series. It seems working relatively well. Yeah, just I'm kind of up to expanding that to an entire, like a large area. So that's where I need a couple of like solving Darcy equations to constrain the problem with the physics. But anyway, so I'm making some updates, but not very directly to the SimPEG. But at one point I'll show you guys later.
Okay, cool. Well, if there's anything, anyone else, burning questions, anything to say? If not, then let's call it a meeting. See you guys all next week. It'll be a first Wednesday, right? So the next will be in the morning.
Thanks,
Take
everyone.
care.
Thanks, Joe.